Okay, let's jump right in. What you're looking at here, EASA AD 2025/204, might just look like a bunch of numbers and letters, but this document is actually a critical piece of the invisible safety net that keeps us all safe when we fly. Today, we're going to break down exactly what it is and, more importantly, why it really matters. So that probably leads you to the big question, right? Before we can get into the specifics of this document, we need to understand what an Airworthiness Directive, or an AD for short, actually is. What's its job in the whole world of aviation? Let's get right to the heart of it. The first thing you really need to get is that this isn't some friendly suggestion or a helpful recommendation. It is a directive. And believe me, they chose that word very, very carefully. The best way to think about it is like a recall notice for your car, but, with way higher stakes. An airworthiness directive is a legally binding rule that comes from an authority like EASA, that's the European Union Aviation Safety Agency. It's their way of saying, hey, we found a potential safety issue and you are required by law to fix it. It is absolutely not optional. So, which aircraft are we talking about here? Well, this particular directive is for the Airbus A350, which is one of the most modern long-haul jets flying today. It covers both the 900 and the 1000 models. And here's the key part. It applies to every single A350 ever built. This is how they make sure that the safety standard is exactly the same for the entire fleet, no matter where in the world it operates. All right, so why now? Why this update? These things don't just pop up out of the blue. They're always part of this constant cycle of making things safer and safer. So let's look at the specific reason for this new directive. And this is a perfect example of that continuous improvement in action. This new AD actually replaces an older one from just last year. The big change is that Airbus themselves updated their official maintenance instructions. The new instructions introduce, and I'm quoting here, new and/or more restrictive safety checks. So EASA is stepping in to make sure that these tougher new checks become mandatory for everyone. And this right here, this quote from the document itself, this is the whole reason these things exist. It's the why behind every single AD. It's not about fixing something that's already broken. It's about getting ahead of the curve and preventing a potential unsafe condition from ever happening in the first place. That is the absolute core of aviation safety. Okay, so that's the what and the why. But what does this actually mean for an airline on a Tuesday morning? If you've got a fleet of A350s, what do you physically have to do? Well, it basically comes down to these three key steps. First, the airline's maintenance crews have to start performing all these new, tougher checks. Simple enough. Second, if they find anything off, any kind of discrepancy, they have to fix it. And third, they need to officially write these new tasks into the aircraft's master maintenance plan. Now, I really want to zero in on that second step for a second, because this is where the rubber meets the runway, so to speak. The rule isn't fix it when you get a chance. The rule is, if a check finds a problem, it must be corrected before that plane's very next flight. That aircraft is grounded until the issue is completely resolved. Period. Okay, so that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the deadlines and, of course, the paperwork. Because in aviation, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So how does all this get tracked and enforced? And that's where something called the Aircraft Maintenance Program, or AMP, comes into play. Just think of it as the aircraft's master rulebook. It's this incredibly detailed, legally binding schedule that spells out every single inspection, every check, and every part replacement that has to happen over the entire life of the plane. And the AD gives airlines a very clear deadline. They've got 12 months, 1 year from the day the directive becomes effective, to officially update their maintenance programs and bake these new A35 checks into the schedule. It makes sure these changes aren't just a one-time thing, but a permanent part of the routine. And this is the really smart part of the whole system. Once those new tasks are in the official plan, complying with the AD just becomes routine. The mechanics are just following the standard procedure. It builds this extra layer of safety right into the day-to-day workflow, so it becomes automatic. So let's zoom out for a minute. Let's step back from the nitty-gritty of this one document and think about what it all means. What does a piece of paper like this really represent? It's a thread in a massive, invisible safety net that supports the entire system of global air travel. When you really boil it all down, this is why this stuff is so important. One AD creates one single, high-safety standard for every A350 on the planet. It's proactive. It's about fixing things before they're problems. It shows us that safety isn't just done, it's always evolving. And the bottom line, it's mandatory. It is the law. It makes sure that safety isn't just a priority, it is the priority.
You know, this whole process, it's just one example of these incredible systems working quietly in the background to keep us safe. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? What other invisible safety systems are out there quietly working just to keep our world running smoothly every single day?